Hello and welcome back to the Gold Newsletter channel. My name is Kai Hoffmann, I'm the @JR Mining Guy on X, and together with our good friend Brien Lundin, I'm the host of the Gold Newsletter channel, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming back Tara Christie. She's the president and CEO over at Banyan Gold. As you know, they're an explorer in the Yukon, 7 million ounces of gold already, and we haven't spoken to Tara in quite a while, so it's really opportune time to get an update. Fall's upon us. We got to recap the summer season. How did it go in the Yukon? Of course, what kind of news can we expect? How did it overall go? Like, are we going to see a growth in the resource? What are the next steps? They're sitting on $14 million in cash. How are they planning? Or not 14 anymore because they spent a bit of money over the summer, but they've raised $14 million right before this summer. How much have they spent? How much is left? And of course, what are some of the next steps for the company? Really looking forward to this update. And before I switch over to my guest, hit that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And now, Tara, without much further ado, it is great to see you again. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you again as well.
Yeah, absolutely. As always enjoy our conversations. And Tara, we got to address the elephant in the room head on. Last we spoke was before the incident at the Victoria Gold Eagle mine, and we got to address it. And I'm going to approach it from the angle like how has that incident sort of changed your business plan?
Well, operationally, we've stayed pretty focused on what our goals were for this year. Technically, operationally, there were a couple of things that slowed us down in the field. There were forest fires that were happening. There was the incident around Victoria Gold. And so we ended up slowing down a little bit, just had one drill for part of the summer. But the nice thing about our property is that we were able to catch up. We'd always planned to drill around 20,000 meters, which we've now done. So in August, after things kind of quieted down, we were able to ramp up to 3 drills. And the nice thing about that is we really got to spend time looking at the core and really understanding what our drilling was achieving, how that was going to impact our geological model. So, that 20,000 meters of drilling, 90% of it was focused on converting some of the inferred resource to indicated in the areas where we think you'd mine first, because we really want to work towards our PEA, which we're going to have by December of next year, which is, we really want to show that this is an economic project. This has 7 million ounces, but where you're going to mine first? Where's where you're actually going to find that IRR that makes this as an exciting project? We know the mineralization starts right on surface, and so that's been our focus. So we're going to add ounces, but we're really focusing on those higher grade zones with what we've drilled this year. Only put out one batch of results, but we're still cutting core. I'm in the Yukon today in Whitehorse, and we're starting to wrap up our season, and it's been a really good season. And actually, because we have such great infrastructure, we could continue drilling right through December if we wanted to. But, we being a little bit cautious. Yes, we raised that $14 million, which actually gave us $18 million. And then we've had revenue of about $1.5 million, which is certainly puts us in a really strong financial position for next year. We're looking to end the year with, around $11-12 million, which is a lot of money to get us into next year.
Yeah, fantastic. No, fantastic introduction, and fantastic update already. I got to follow up on a few things, of course. PA is one, resource conversion drilling is the other. How does maybe let's start with the drill results you put out just recently. Like, how do they correlate and to the past results? More of the same? Anything that stands out? Can you give us an update on that?
No, we were pleased with the results that we've got, because the important part is, when you're converting are you going to add ounces, lose ounces? Are you focusing on, is your model actually proving out? And we've had some great expertise help us. We had Henry Marsden from Yamana up in June, looking at our rocks, helping us to make sure that the model that we're using is really something that people have some confidence in. And so, what are the structural controls? Can we see where this high grade is constrained, and do we have a way to model it? And I think that's been very positive. We also had Moira Smith up to take a look from Liberty. She's an excellent geologist as well. So I think taking that time to make sure that we're doing and achieving what we want has been really positive for us.
Yeah, personally, big fan of Moira. So she looks at a project and she's found a lot of ounces in the past as well. So somebody I'd
Absolutely.
definitely listen to. No, fantastic. Like I didn't mean to downplay the results or anything, but I remember being on site with you. It's like, it's more of the same. Here's some visible gold. It's all the same grade. It all looks the same. It's not even material anymore, right? I remember that conversation. So I didn't mean to downplay the results there, Tara. So that's good news. And where have you focused? Like, where's the higher grade area? Maybe we can sort of map that out just a little bit.
Right in power line, so very accessible. We're also drilling on airstrip again this year. That's higher grade, 0.75 overall grade in the inferred resource, and we kind of left off drilling it in 2020 and hadn't been back. We knew there were some longer sections starting right from surface with some higher grade, and with the modeling that we did last year. So we did some scoping study work to kind of guide where would the pits be, which is where we've chosen to drill. And airstrip actually comes into play in some of the scenarios. And so knowing that we'd left both ounces we hadn't drilled off and higher grade, getting back and drilling there has also been part of our program. In addition, we've done lots of metallurgy this year on both Powerline, Airstrip, and Oryx Hill, which is a portion of Powerline, but geochemically different than the main Powerline zone. Those results are showing us that 93% from CIL and currently 84 from gravity flotation. We think we can get that up closer to 86. So we're continuing to do that met work that will help us to show that this project has processing options which are viable, and that's what we really need to do in advance of our PEA. So I think we've done all the groundwork that we need to do. So once we get our results back, update the resource, do the PEA, and meanwhile, some of that exploration for us to be focused on next year.
In layman terms, describe us a little bit why is it so important to have like 93% recovery in CIL? A, what does CIL mean? And B, why is it so important to have that? I think we need to work that out just a little bit. Of course, I understand it, or most of it at least, but not all of it. But what's the importance and the significance of it, Tara?
Well, that's how much gold you recover. It's carbon and leach CIL, so it's a mill processing option. So there's 3 general processing options which could be used, and you can have combinations of them as well. Victoria Gold's a heap leach project. A CIL, CIP, you have a mill. It's not the same where you put all the ore on a heap leach pad. And then gravity flotation, that's also an interesting option for us because, as I said, we had that 84%, but only a 3.7% mass pull. So what that means is that when you process it, it again is a mill option, and then you have flotation tanks, 53% gravity recovery, which is actually pretty high. So that's volume reduction. And then with the 3.7% mass pull, that means that your final treatment is only on roughly 4% of the material, and that's what ends up in the tailings pond. So, they all have different scales, and we've looked at, small tonnages through higher processing options in some of our scoping study works. And, in our PEA, we need to think about that as well as potentially scaling up. So there's 3 options, and you look at like Fort Knox, they had put in a mill first, and then later they put in a heap leach pad for their low grade, which they stockpiled for lots of years. So, it's not simple. It doesn't come out of a box, here's your mining process. You need to understand all the different metallurgy and options, and then figure out what's the best for the economics of your project. So that's a lot of work that we've been doing behind the scenes as we get ready for our PEA, is what are the options, and then what's the best option.
PEA you mentioned by the end of the year, by the end of next year, sorry, 2025. So don't get confused because it's already end of October 2020 or early October 2024. So we got about 12, 14 months until the release of the PEA. What else are you planning to include? What else do you need to do to get to that PEA stage?
Well, we think we've done all the drilling we need to support it. So that's why we focused on that drilling this year. And then the met work will continue to do that. And we're running various different engineering optimization now to kind of understand, what would be mined, what aspects go in there. And some of the met work we've worked on has really focused on things that not only are recoveries, but also things that reduce capital cost and potential operating costs, like understanding what your hardness is, understanding grain size. Do you have to make it that fine? So we're doing all of that work. And then we're doing that exploration work, which we talked about a little bit earlier, the ZTEM survey and a little bit of soils out on our Nitra property. Because next year, while we're waiting for our PEA, we can continue to drill at AurMac itself on Powerline and Airstrip to continue to grow and expand the resource. But we also have really not explored the rest of our property. We made our discovery in 2019, and then we were laser focused on Powerline and really growing it and getting what we thought's an economic deposit. But we have another 300 square kilometers. We've only explored less than 5% of it. So that's something, and we haven't found our intrusion. Remember, we are in the meta sediments that are above or below in the horn fells around an intrusion. Where's the intrusion? So we're also doing a bunch of technical work, both looking at the mineralogy, where are the high temperature minerals, putting in some isographs, so within the deposit, but then flying that ZTEM survey, which also gives you kind of deeper looks. And at Powerline, we've done a 3D geophysical inversion as well, also helping us not only look for the intrusion, but also really understand where to focus for the most exploration potential on Nitra as well. So, a lot of technical work that we're doing, which, is going to set us up for next year to have more news flow.
On Nitra, maybe we'll need to talk about the project. 'Cause I told you before we hit the record button, it's like, I haven't heard about Nitra. You never mentioned it to me at all. And we've shared an office in Vancouver and I've never heard about it. Right? So let's talk about that. It's like, why are you spending the money on Nitra? Like, yes, it's underexplored. I get that part. But what are you seeing? Like, why is it, why does it warrant spending money on it? And does it... do you see it even being included in the PA? It's probably way too early stage because there's no resource, no nothing. So that's more me fantasizing here. But what's the plan? Like, of course, you got to have a bit of a business plan when you do fly a project. Like, what's the idea?
Well, partly there was the opportunity to cost share, the MOB of this ZTEM survey. We know that there are intrusions out at Nitra, and there's a deposit called Gold Dome, which is owned by Victoria Gold, which is right around our property. And it has very similar intrusion-related mineralization in the meta sediments. Their intrusion's never been drilled, and that intrusion is interpreted to come onto our property. We have a lot at Nitra, there are a considerable number of placer mines. There's probably 7 active placer mines, and there's been a lot of historic gold production from there. We've had some soils out there, but again, it hasn't been something that we've focused on. So we thought we'd take this opportunity to get out there and do this ZTEM surveys to set us up to do some work out there next year. And we know just on the other side of the river to the west, there's Sitka, and they have found multiple discoveries and intrusions. We know there's these types of deposits occur in belts. So, it's kind of the east-west from AurMac, Nitra, Sitka, and then north is Victoria Gold, also intrusion related. So, this is a camp. And I think that if we were to make even a discovery out there that shows that we have additional resource potential, and we know already with placer mines there and with Victoria having mineralization at Gold Dome, that there's pretty high potential. I think that would really show that not only do we have 7 million plus ounces and the opportunity to grow it right at Powerline and Airstrip, but have additional potential on the land package that we have. So I think that could be an exciting story for us. Meanwhile, while we're working towards our PEA, we're doing exploration at Powerline and AurMac proper to look for how big you can expand that. Like I've always armed waved and said, you can see 7 million ounces, but I think a geologist can go, well, I think you could grow that to 7 million or 10 million ounces pretty quickly, which makes this one of the largest open pit projects in North America.
10 million ounces is that's a in Germany you say house number. It's a house number. Doesn't really make sense in English, but it's a mark. Like it's a benchmark you can benchmark against, right? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You went down to Nitra too quickly. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question on the PEA discussion that we had, because you elevated Mark Blythe, or not you, but your board elevated Mark Blythe to chairman, and you've announced the addition of a new board member, Haley Halsall-Whitney. Just in terms of context of the PA, like how important is that step and that announcement as well? Like talking about people here, she's a chemical engineer, Mark Blythe is a mining engineer. So you're really going down that development track here, or at least you're threatening. And maybe explain that a little bit, the announcement or the appointments to us.
Well, it is important to have an independent chairperson, and Mark's been on the board for a couple years now, and so we've got a great team. We work well together. Certainly, he's got lots of experience looking at projects all over. So ideal to be the chair, and also positioning Haley, who's got a lot of operational experience. She's worked at various different mines, understands some of the key challenges that you need to look at as you're both designing and operating projects. So, two technical people on the boards is really helpful as we're going down the path of, okay, let's do our PEA first. And a PEA is not a feasibility study where you get that higher level of engineering. But certainly, both great additions, and we have a really collaborative board now that I think has positioned us well for that. And do I think Banyan's going to build this? Well, we've got everything in place to do the PEA. We've done the baseline work so that this project could move into permitting. This is such an exciting gold market, $2,600 gold, 7 million ounces right on surface with power lines already on the property, cell phone service, roads. Do I think we'll actually get that opportunity? Well, we can take it down the road quite a ways, but I think there's a lot of synergies. This is turning out to be a camp, and even just right around us, I can add up 25 million ounces in resources, never mind the potential. The synergies with Victoria Gold down the road are still there. If somebody is to purchase that, then all of a sudden you'd have a potential for producing 600,000 ounces per year in a pretty short time period. You look at that, we're the 7th largest open pit project in North America. With the Victoria Gold, maybe you could be 2-3 years producing 200,000 from their assets. 5, 6, 7 years, you'd have, depending on how fast you want to go at it, you could have another, 200 to 400 from an AurMac, depending on what scale you want to go at, and then have 14, 15 million ounces in resources plus potential to grow at both properties. Remember the Raven deposit and Lynx right across the valley from us. We stand at our camp and we look at that, and that's higher grade. That was 1.7 grams and 1.1 million ounces, but they had some tremendous drill results, which I think would make that larger and higher grade. That's probably going to come across the valley and get mined where there's flat ground with infrastructure. So, I think the synergies are just building, and the more discoveries, from what Trifecta's off to the east, Sitka's off to the west, we're seeing this belt really develop. And the nice thing about where we are is we have that existing infrastructure and 2 mines right beside us. So, that's a huge advantage in this gold market. So, you say, yeah, we're threatening to go down that development path. I think the odds of a Banyan developing this are low compared to the potential to be acquired, and for people to maybe acquire a district. Where else can you find that many ounces and growing all around a road in existing mines? It's pretty
Absolutely.
rare.
And that's why I brought up this slide, because I asked you about it earlier, because what was the angle? Why are you showing like Eagle and Raven plus Banyan Gold on one slide? Of course, my mind went the other route, because while the incident happened at Victoria, I was making an off-cuff comment to an investor friend of mine. I was like, maybe Banyan is going to buy Victoria now, because at some point you were trading at par in terms of valuation. And, there's a finished mining or not finished, is the wrong term, like a ready-to-go mining operation just 40 kilometers down the road. So that's why I was like, my mind was like, maybe Banyan is actually buying Victoria and buying the asset, buying Eagle. But I think your explanation makes a lot more sense than that. There is a camp, there is a whole area that can, if it once consolidated, it makes a lot of sense to take back into production, whoever that is. Right?
Well, and the government's been pretty clear. People ask, what's the impact of Victoria Gold? Well, the government has said that they want mining and exploration to continue. They want to put that mine back into production. They're not selling assets, and that's probably been one of the challenges for our share price. And might as well talk about the elephant in the room, is that people are worried that the receiver is going to sell our share block, and they hold other companies as well. And their share blocks in them, some with a higher percentage. But I kind of look at that, and I look at what the premier and the ministers have said. They're not selling assets. The receivers said that as well. They've got lots of cash from the Yukon government and a commitment for more. So if that's actually what they want, that overhang isn't a real concern for me. And I've been out talking Beaver Creek, Denver Gold. I get asked that questions a lot. And the nice thing about talking about that with people is people are like, well, you make sure you call me if that block comes up for sale. And any CEO is always understanding who wants blocks of stock. That's part of what your job is. If you need to do a block trade to get somebody in and out of the stock, you need to know who your potential buyers are, who could help you with that trade. And I had to do it before. Remember when Alexco sold their block back in 2021? That was 15 million shares, which, when we actually did have that block trade happen, it only took like 2 cents off our share price. So, if you do that right and you're prepared, and the nice thing is that the receiver, has an obligation through the court to, get approval for any asset sale. So we're going to know well in advance on that. And, maybe somebody does come in and buy Eagle, and all of a sudden I have a deep pocketed 10.5% shareholder. That's a interesting story as well. And then what are they going to do? They have a large position in our stock. I think that's could be interesting.
100%. 100%. I think there's a lot of excitement still in the area. Left, like, yes, everybody was shocked when it happened, but reality returned rather quickly. You mentioned Sitka, Snowline. I think everybody started to recover rather quickly. And I think the government and I wouldn't say praise, but Premier Pillai, but he made some statements that gave me a bit more confidence as well. As you know, I'm a board member of Trifecta, so I'm a bit conflicted here. But the positive note is, he said we can work in the Yukon. We're not going to be shutting everything down. So he made sure that the Yukon remained open for business, right?
Absolutely.
So
That's been key messaging from them. So, Sitka and Snowline have seen their share prices recover a little bit. I think ours, we're starting to get that attention. We haven't seen our share price come up yet, but I think it's coming as we put out our results and people continue to get more confidence in that. And, we get that same messaging from the government about, not dumping shares. I think that's going to be a positive for us. And, people are starting to look at gold projects and where can you find another project under $10 per ounce? Our peers, Snowline's still around $120 an ounce. Sitka's, I think, 70 or 80 now dollars per ounce. And I think our infrastructure, our proximity, like our mineralization, starts right on surface. We have no key wildlife areas on our property, existing roads. That all adds a lot. Grade's important, but where's the economic project that you can mine? And that's why we're going down the PEA path. And that also will let us earn 100% of the property, which will be a really good messaging. And that's the last thing that we need to do is to do that PEA. We've done all the other exploration work to do that.
Do you see a chance of accelerating the PEA and maybe publish it over the summer next year or so, or do you think you'll need the time until the end of next year?
Well, you always like to leave yourself a little bit of time in case things don't go as expected, particularly when they're consultants. But that is an option for us for sure. We've already done the scoping level work. We've been waiting for additional network, looking at options so that we actually do have a really good PEA, and we are going to have to pick a project, right, for the PEA. And going to Beaver Creek and Denver Gold, different companies build different things. So, there are some that really like CIL. There are some that are experts in flotation, and there are some that really heap leach is what it is, because different companies have different cash positions, the ability to put in capital. And, are you building a 10-year heap leach, or are you building a mine based on a 10, 15 year, putting in a mill, which then runs for 30 or 40 years because the resource is that big. So it's worth the capital. So, we're looking at what's the best option overall for the project with the work that we're doing, but different companies might choose to build different options. Having good recoveries like that gives it that optionality. Often you have a project with only one process works and that's it. We have that challenge that, gravity flotation and CIL are both really strong options for us.
Oh, 100%. No, it's nice to have that optionality, and it looks like it's recovering well, a little tweaking here and there, and it should work fine. Oversimplified, of course, but it's turning in the right direction, absolutely. Tara, let's put a bow around the conversation. What's next for Banyan? What can we as investors expect? And I'm an investor and shareholder, by the way, as well. What can we expect in the next 3 months from the company?
Well, we'll have drill results continuously all the way into probably March, April. The labs still are a little bit slow. We're still cutting core. We're going to be cutting core for another month, having drilled pretty quickly, and then get that off to the lab. Then, April, probably May, June, we'll have a resource update, and then we'll have our PEA after that. But meanwhile, we'll have the results from the ZTEM survey, the 3D geophysics that we're doing in the soils. We think we've got some exciting targets out on Nitra that we'll be able to get out and drill, and we're funded for drilling next year. So, June we'll probably start drilling again on the property, and so that'll give us news flow after the PEA and into 2026. So I think we're in really good position. This jurisdiction's heating up. We're going to go into 2025 with a strong treasury, which I think is good for our shareholders. We've been very careful to make sure that we have strong news flow showing that this project is exciting, that our drilling has hit, we think, what we targeted, which showing that higher grade zones in a way to actually identify the higher grade zones within the deposit, which I think is going to be great for our shareholders.
Oh, 100%. So I'm excited. It's like, again, 7 million ounces of the Yukon, and I've been to the project, what is it now, 4, 5, 6 times, I can't remember, but quite a few times, and it's the most easily accessible project, or one of the easiest, or with my English, I'm struggling with my English right now, but it's one of the easier projects to get to, and I even have cell reception on site, which in the
and
Yukon
you even
means
got
a lot,
to plan some placer gold from AurMac, and because that's a really good indication that there's a deposit there, is when you can pan placer gold right on the surface.
It's got to come from somewhere, right? And it's usually close. Gold doesn't travel that far. So, no. Fantastic. Tara, really appreciate it. Thanks so much for making the time. Really comprehensive update. Thanks for facing all the questions, of course, that we've had here. Thanks for being honest, open, and just sharing your story and sharing the Banyan story with us. Thank you so much. And everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate you watching here at the Gold Newsletter channel. Hope this update was useful and informational for you. If it was, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out tremendously. And we'll be back with lots more here on the Gold Newsletter channel. Thank you so much.